What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wrestling City, and today we're going to be reacting to another video, and this one is titled 10 WWE storylines canceled because of real life drama. So this one is posted by Wrestling Flashbacks. Shout out to him. I don't know if I've reacted to any of his videos on this channel before, but I know I've watched his videos in the past. He makes some pretty good compilation type content, so I'm excited to check this one out. But this one is a bit longer, sitting at just over 22 minutes. So if you're watching this, go ahead and buckle in, get comfy, get yourself a drink, and just come sit back and watch this with me, because I am ready to get this one started. Let's go.
1, 2, is this on?
WWE is often incredible at storytelling. Some storylines flop while others are unforgettable. But what about the ones that just vanish? No payoff, no closure, just dropped.
The crazy thing is, it ended so abruptly. There was no finish to it. So I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if someone was uncomfortable. Maybe a fiance didn't like what was going on. I'm just saying, I don't know why it ended so quickly.
Today, we're diving deep into 10 times WWE abandoned a storyline without explanation.
But I only lasted about 90 seconds, so that was so disappointing to me and for everything I had done the last couple weeks and months.
Some of these had major potential, while others just left fans scratching their heads.
The way they did that just made it look like nobody else mattered but Triple H. And that's not what you want to do with talent that you're building.
Vince
That's
McMahon has been
fair.
at the center of some of WWE's wildest moments, but nothing compared to the June 11, 2007 episode of Raw. The show had been rebranded as Mr. McMahon Appreciation, an ego-driven spectacle following McMahon's humiliating loss of the ECW Championship to Bobby Lashley at One Night Stand. Throughout the night,
Durag
WWE legends and
Vince.
personalities appeared, not to praise McMahon, but to mock and insult him. Stone Cold Steve Austin took verbal jabs, and even Donald Trump made an appearance. McMahon appeared increasingly dejected as the night went on. Then came the shocking ending, as McMahon silently walked through the backstage area, passing the entire
Paul
WWE
London.
roster. He looked lifeless, almost as if he were already gone. He stepped into the limousine, shut the door, and suddenly, the vehicle exploded into a fireball. The screen cut to black. It was one of the most dramatic endings to Raw in history. Fans were stunned. WWE was staging a kayfabe death of Mr. McMahon. Some viewers, including Donald Trump, believed the explosion was real, which briefly caused WWE's stock price to drop until the company issued a statement clarifying that only the character of Mr. McMahon had died. The next episode of Raw revealed that an FBI investigation was underway, with a 3-hour special planned for June 25th. The episode was set to feature McMahon's funeral, where the WWE would gather to mourn or celebrate his passing. Linda McMahon was even scheduled to be arrested as a suspect in Vince's murder, and his lesser-known brother, Rod McMahon, was set to make his first ever WWE appearance. The long-term plan? Mr. Kennedy was to be revealed as Vince's illegitimate son, inheriting control of WWE and becoming an egomaniacal villain. The feud would culminate at WrestleMania 24, with Kennedy either defending the WWE Championship against Triple H, or battling Shane McMahon for the control of the company. But then, real tragedy struck. On June 24, 2007, Chris Benoit was found dead, alongside his wife Nancy and their 7-year-old son Daniel, in a horrific double murder-suicide. As details emerged, WWE immediately cancelled the McMahon storyline. Instead of Vince's funeral, the planned June 25th Raw became a solemn Chris Benoit tribute show. However, by the time the tribute aired, new reports surfaced that Benoit had murdered his wife and son before taking his own life. WWE went into full damage control. They erased Benoit from history, removing him from all promotional materials.
It's so weird looking back at this episode of Raw, because it's obviously this whole thing was before they found out what really happened, the fact that he was responsible for the death of his family members and himself. They were still thinking maybe it could be a murder or something like that, or like carbon monoxide poisoning in the house, or something along the lines of that. And you can actually see during this time, when you go to specific wrestling threads from June of 2007, you can see in real time these people, like when it's like, oh, Chris Benoit's dead, and apparently his family, ended up passing away too. I wonder what could have happened. And then as the day goes along, you can slowly see them come to like, oh, it could be this reason, it could be this reason. And then somebody's like, oh, what if he murdered them? And they're like, no, he wouldn't have done that. Could he have? Oh, I think he did. And just seeing that is just, oh, gives me chills to this day, man.
and future programming, the McMahon death storyline was quietly abandoned, with Vince returning to TV on August 6, revealing that he faked his demise to see who truly cared about him. Though WWE salvaged parts of the illegitimate son storyline, Mr. Kennedy was no longer involved, partly due to his own suspension in a steroid scandal. Instead, the angle took a comedic turn, with Hornswoggle being revealed as Vince's bastard child. What was originally designed as one of WWE's most ambitious and dramatic storylines ended in pure absurdity. McMahon's limo explosion remains WWE's biggest what could have been moments.
Yeah,
abandoned
for
not by
sure.
creative missteps, but by the darkest real-life tragedy in wrestling history. Dolph Ziggler had one of the most unpredictable careers in WWE, but in 2017 he pulled one of his strangest moves ever. At Clash of Champions, he won the United States Championship, only to leave the title in the ring and walk away at the next SmackDown.
Oh, I forgot about this.
To remember me by.
I'm gonna have everyone talking about me one way or another.
Wow.
Threw it down and walked out, and I loved it. I go, this is great.
Ziggler's cryptic exit suggested a major storyline was coming. Maybe a character change, a bigger push. Instead, nothing happened. He returned at the Royal Rumble a month later, lasted under 2 minutes, and never really gave an explanation.
I thought he retired or something.
What in
I
the
thought he was done
world?
too.
Later, Ziggler revealed in an interview that he had a vision for this storyline, but WWE took it in a different direction. He explained that he wanted to walk away for an extended period, let fans wonder about his status, and return as a more powerful character. In reality, he was only gone for 3 weeks, far from the impactful absence he had hoped for. I wanted something special to happen. I wanted to go away, work on myself, make myself stronger, make my character better. So I did what I could, and I slammed the title down and walked out. This was the most anyone talked about me in 7 years.
But I only lasted about 90 seconds, so that was so disappointing to me, and for everything I had done the last couple weeks.
Yeah,
The
that
plan seemed to
sucks
be
for
that Ziggler
him.
was on his way out of WWE, as rumors at the time suggested he was planning to leave the company. However, WWE reportedly made him a contract offer too lucrative to turn down. His sudden return at the Royal Rumble felt awkwardly rushed, and WWE scrambled to justify his return by having him claim he gave up the US title because he wanted a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. The reality, he ended up competing in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, a complete afterthought. What could have been a powerful reinvention of Ziggler's character ended up as another missed opportunity in his rollercoaster career. The
It
Nexus
feels like that's that's been the case for so many times in his career. And him as a world champion, I do remember when he, I guess technically the second time he was world champion, when he cashed in his Money in the Bank and then lost it a few months later. Apparently that was due to like injuries. He had like a concussion or something like that, or some injury that basically made it where he couldn't keep it. But at the same time, he was out for like a month or two. They could have done something, man. They just gave up on him, and that seems to be the case with him a lot of times throughout the years. I remember when he was, the final survivor or the sole survivor at Survivor Series 2014 when he was facing Team Authority. He was so over, and they just didn't capitalize much beyond that. Sad story, his entire career basically.
was one of the hottest factions WWE had introduced in years. Despite suffering a major loss at SummerSlam 2010, the group still had credibility as a dangerous, disruptive force in WWE, and in a moment that has largely been forgotten, they set their sights on one of the biggest names of all time, The Undertaker. On the 900th episode of Raw, just a few weeks after their SummerSlam defeat, Nexus attacked The Undertaker and left him laying. This was a huge statement. Taker, known for his supernatural resilience, had been overwhelmed and taken out by the upstart group. It was a golden opportunity to re-establish the Nexus as a dominant threat, but WWE never capitalized on it. In fact, the segment barely got any follow-up, and the faction quickly lost momentum once again. However, the Nexus wasn't done with the dead man just yet. At Bragging Rights 2010, The Undertaker faced Kane in a very live match for the World Heavyweight Championship. With Kane on the verge of losing, the Nexus suddenly interfered, attacking The Undertaker and helping Kane bury him alive. This shocking twist seemingly set up a major storyline between the Nexus and the Fiend.
I wonder why they stopped
then,
it.
Nothing happened. The next night on Raw, Wade Barrett, the leader of the Nexus, briefly mentioned the attack but gave no explanation. He simply stated that the Nexus had their reasons for getting involved.
But it is fairly obvious, if you know how WWE works, that if a group of guys attack The Undertaker and put The Undertaker out for 5 months until he comes back 4 weeks before WrestleMania for his run there, clearly the intention is for Undertaker to come back and work with those guys.
No feud developed between The Undertaker and the Nexus. No retribution was sought. It was as if WWE had simply dropped the entire angle overnight. Rumors at the time suggested that the WWE had initially planned for The Undertaker to face Wade Barrett at WrestleMania 27. This would have been a major opportunity for Barrett, potentially elevating him to main event status. However, plans changed, and The Undertaker ended up facing Triple H instead. The Nexus, meanwhile, lost more steam in the following months. After Barrett was exiled from the group, CM Punk took over as the leader of the new Nexus, Nexus in early 2011, but the faction had lost its bite. By the time WrestleMania 27 rolled around, the Nexus was a shell of what it once was. The biggest mystery remains, why did WWE have the Nexus attack The Undertaker twice, only to never follow up? Was this simply a way to write The Undertaker off TV so he could take time off? Did WWE lose faith in the Nexus as a top faction? We may never know, but what could have been a career-defining feud for Wade Barrett and the Nexus became just another forgotten
That
chapter
would have
in
been
WWE
great.
history. At the 2015 Royal Rumble, Curtis Axel was set to enter the match at number 5. However, before he could even make his way to the ring, Eric Rowan of the
Axelmania.
Wyatt family ambushed him backstage and took his spot. Axel never technically entered the match, meaning he was never officially eliminated. While this seemed like an inconsequential moment at first, the internet quickly took notice. Fans began spreading the joke that Curtis Axel was never eliminated, and that he was the rightful winner of the Royal Rumble. Axel and WWE Creative were smart enough to capitalize on the viral trend. He started appearing on television declaring that he was still the rightful Royal Rumble winner.
Didn't he
and
get
pointing to
thrown
the
out on
WrestleMania
TV
sign in
later?
protest. His gimmick, known as Axelmania, began to gain traction as he played up his delusional confidence. Fans, many of whom were unhappy with Roman Reigns' Rumble win, latched on to Axel's campaign as an amusing form of protest. WWE leaned into the gag, having Axel come out every week boasting about how long he had been in the Royal Rumble match, even though he never actually entered it. For a brief moment, Axelmania had real momentum. Axel appeared in segments with celebrities like Snoop Dogg and Hulk Hogan, and he even competed in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 31. However,
He
WWE
even did
soon
that?
entered the gimmick in a way that completely derailed his original appeal. Instead of continuing with the never eliminated angle, they turned Axel into a full-blown parody of Hulk Hogan. He began mimicking Hogan's mannerisms, catchphrases, and theme music, while Damien Sandow was repackaged as Macho Mandow to form a tag team parody of the Mega Powers known as the Meta Powers. While still somewhat entertaining, the new direction watered down what had made Axelmania fun in the first place.
Dude, I remember being so disappointed by this. And Axel, man, I mean, he had a banger theme song, you know, that remix of Mr. Perfect's theme. And I thought that was pretty cool. But take that aside, I didn't really care much for Curtis Axel. But Damien Sandow, man, I've always been a huge fan of him. I loved him when he was the savior of the unwashed masses, you know, intellectual person where he wore the blue robe. I thought that was really cool. And then he capitalized on his bad, you know, essentially bad character with Mizdow and made it into something great because he's that good of a worker. So when they at WrestleMania, he split up from the Miz and he faced him in a match, and he lost a match for the Miz likeness or whatnot. And I was like, how are they gonna make him move on past this? And that's when they did this, the Mega Powers or the Meta Powers or something like that, like just a ripoff of Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. And I was like, no, what are y'all doing? And I knew at that point there was no coming back for Damien Sandow. This is PTSD, trauma from my childhood as a wrestling fan under Vince's booking.
The final nail in the coffin came when WWE fired Hulk Hogan in July 2015, following the release of his racist comments. In an effort to distance themselves from Hogan, WWE scrubbed all references to him, including Axel.
Yeah.
The gimmick was immediately dropped, and Axel was left directionless once again.
I don't think they were planning to give us a big push or anything, but crowd-wise, we were an attraction, and in the house shows, we were getting as loud of a response as anybody.
Axelmania is a perfect example of WWE failing to understand what made an organic gimmick work. What started as a fun, fan-driven joke turned into something overproduced and ultimately doomed. WWE has a history of mismanaging organically over acts like Zack Ryder, Damien Mizdow, and Rusev Day. And Axelmania is just another example of a promising idea being ruined by unnecessary tinkering. Despite seeming destined to collide at numerous points in their WWE careers, Bray Wyatt and Brock Lesnar never faced off one-on-one inside a WWE ring. On multiple occasions, WWE planted the seeds for a feud, only to drop it without explanation. The first major tease came at Royal Rumble 2016, when the Wyatt family collectively eliminated Lesnar from
Maybe I'm recalling incorrectly, but I think they did face. I mean, it was at a smaller, wasn't it like the Japan show or something like that? I could have sworn we saw Brock Lesnar and Bray Wyatt in a match, but not during this time period. I think it was before it.
the match. It seemed like WWE was setting up a WrestleMania clash, but instead Lesnar was abruptly shifted into a feud with Dean Ambrose. Wyatt and his faction were left in limbo, eventually getting involved in an impromptu and underwhelming segment with The Rock instead. The original plan for Lesnar vs Wyatt at WrestleMania 32 was quietly scrapped without explanation. A second opportunity arose shortly after, as WWE scheduled a match between Lesnar and Wyatt at Roadblock 2016. However, just before the event, WWE inexplicably changed it to a 2-on-1 handicap match, with Wyatt standing at ringside while Luke Harper
Maybe
took
this
most
is
of the
what I was
offense against
thinking of.
Lesnar. Despite the continued teases, WWE never followed through with a proper one-on-one match. The most recent attempt came in 2023, when Wyatt declared his intent to face the winner of Brock Lesnar vs Bobby Lashley at Elimination Chamber. Lashley won via disqualification, setting up a storyline with Wyatt. However, reports soon emerged that Lesnar had turned down the feud entirely, leading to him facing Omos at WrestleMania 39 instead. Dave Meltzer later reported that Lesnar personally rejected the idea of working with Wyatt, not for personal reasons, but because he felt their styles didn't mesh. Lesnar's entire persona is built on legitimacy and real-world dominance, whereas Wyatt's character is centered around supernatural horror elements. WWE's
guess that's
inconsistent
fair.
booking of Wyatt also played a role, as many wrestlers left feuds with him in a worse position than when they started. Ultimately, the WWE universe never got to see how a Lesnar vs Wyatt feud would unfold. Despite years of teasing and missed opportunities, the company never pulled the trigger on the match, leaving it as one of WWE's biggest what-ifs. In late 2008, WWE introduced a mysterious new character, Haye Vansen, in a cryptic promo on SmackDown. The vignette showed Vansen speaking in a dark, eerie tone, claiming he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. He spoke of destiny, power, and hinted at a supernatural connection to The Undertaker.
I don't remember this.
Will not be in vain.
WWE had big plans for him, with the ultimate goal of setting up a WrestleMania 25 feud against the Dead Man. According to former WWE writer Freddie Prinze Jr., Vansen was supposed to lead a cult-like faction, somewhat resembling the X-Men or the Brood, with each member possessing unique abilities. The storyline would have seen Vansen declare himself as The Undertaker's long-lost son, someone who had been abandoned and was now returning for revenge. WWE even filmed multiple vignettes to build anticipation for his arrival. However, before the storyline could gain traction, Triple H reportedly mocked the idea in a meeting with Vince McMahon, laughing at the concept of The Undertaker having a mutant gang. That was all it took for Vince to scrap the storyline entirely.
He says, "Are we really going to go with this guy?" And Vince goes, "What do you mean? What's the problem?" And he says, "He looks like he cuts my grass, man." And Vince laughed. And literally all the air went out of the room.
Vansen was promptly released from his contract, never appearing on WWE television again. The decision to cancel the feud may have inadvertently led to one of WWE's greatest matches ever, Undertaker vs Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, but it also robbed fans of what could have been an intriguing supernatural rivalry. Instead of reworking or repackaging Vansen, WWE simply erased him, leaving his one promo as the only trace of what could have been. For Haye Vansen, it was a cruel twist of fate, going from being positioned as The Undertaker's WrestleMania opponent to being completely forgotten in the span of weeks.
Wow, I feel bad for
Hideo
him.
Itami was sidelined with a shoulder injury. Instead of a simple announcement, NXT crafted a mystery angle. He was found attacked in the parking lot before TakeOver. The prime suspect, Kevin Owens. Owens even taunted Itami on TV, but then nothing. A year passed, Itami returned, and the storyline was never mentioned again. Itami later called his WWE run the most frustrating days of my life. Fans were left wondering who was originally planned to be the attacker, if WWE even had an answer. This wasn't the first time WWE abandoned a mystery attacker angle, and No Way Out 2003, Edge was found unconscious backstage before his scheduled tag team match with Chris Benoit and Brock Lesnar. EMTs rushed to his aid while Benoit and Lesnar were left wondering what happened to their partner. The segment built intrigue. Who took out Edge? What were the repercussions? The answer? None. The storyline was quietly dropped, as Edge was actually written off TV to undergo neck surgery. Unlike other injury angles that built towards revenge or a return storyline, WWE never addressed the attack again. Even Edge himself has admitted that it always bothered him that WWE never followed up on it. Two different eras, two different wrestlers, but the same lazy writing. WWE has a history of dropping mystery attacker storylines, leaving fans without answers and performers without payoffs. By late 2017, Raw and SmackDown had lost a lot of momentum due to uninspired, repetitive booking. The previous year's brand warfare at Survivor Series had some level of excitement, but by 2017, the investment had significantly dropped. Despite this, WWE put together a huge 5-on-5 men's Survivor Series match, featuring a mix of part-timers, modern-day main eventers, and big-name NXT call-ups. On paper, it was stacked. What could go wrong? The match determined the final result of the night, with both brands tied 3-3 in the overall score. However, the brand supremacy stakes felt completely meaningless, especially when considering that two of the biggest names in the match, Triple H and John Cena, had barely appeared on Raw and SmackDown in the months leading up to the show. Neither man even wore the brand-specific shirts their teammates donned, with Cena showing up in his standard green gear, giving the impression that he was just there to make an appearance. The early moments of the match felt surreal, like a bizarre dream sequence filled with mini face-offs between major names. Samoa Joe and Randy Orton opened with a matchup that commentators hyped as a dream match, only for them to immediately tag out to Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura. Fans erupted with NXT chants, as both men showcased their fast-paced, Japanese-inspired styles.
Nonetheless, Balor and Shinsuke squaring off.
The sequence continued with Triple H facing Bobby Roode, two men who had been compared with each other over the years, drawing a fun reaction from the crowd.
Give Bobby Roode credit for his policy. Calling for it. Oh!
Even Kurt Angle squared off with his former TNA rivals, though WWE's commentary avoided any mention of their history. However, things took a nosedive fast. The match should have been an opportunity to elevate younger talent, but instead, Samoa Joe was eliminated early by Cena. Given that Cena barely appeared on WWE TV afterward, it was a baffling booking decision. Balor was also eliminated by Orton in another frustrating moment, further proving that WWE had no long-term plans to build new stars. By the time the match neared its conclusion, 4 of the 5 remaining superstars were Triple H, Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon, and Randy Orton. Meanwhile, 4 former NXT champions had already been eliminated. Shane McMahon, despite being an authority figure and not a full-time wrestler, was booked as the ultimate underdog, even surviving an ambush from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Then came the real disaster. Triple H turned on his own teammate Angle, helping Shane eliminate him.
Broken by now. What the hell? It is pedigreed his captain.
But rather than siding with SmackDown, he then turned on Shane as well, pinning him to secure the victory for Raw.
Oh my God! Oh, that's what it was all about. The cerebral assassin with the
Wow.
pedigree. He wanted to take out Shane
I forgot
himself.
how bad this
The match
was.
ended with Braun Strowman, who had barely been involved in the finishing sequence, watching from the apron as Triple H celebrated like he had just masterminded the biggest heist in WWE history. In a moment of comic justice, Strowman attacked Triple H after the match, choking him and hitting him with multiple power slams as the crowd cheered. Triple H cowered in
The
the
look
corner,
on
setting
his
the moment like he was
face.
terrified.
You will never play this game again.
Bro, look at he is terrified. Oh, this is the dark times of WWE. I will never stop saying that. The 2018, 2019, good lord. Triple H, bro.
But WWE ultimately did nothing with this moving forward. Kurt Angle later commented on the match booking, saying it felt like no one else mattered but Triple H. He also noted that Strowman was completely left hanging by WWE's lack of follow-up, making the ending feel even more pointless. Despite looking dominant in the moment, Strowman never got a high-profile storyline out of this, and by 2022 he was out of WWE entirely. In the end, Survivor Series 2017 served no purpose, other than to give Triple H another victorious moment.
The way they did that just made it look like, nobody else mattered but Triple H. And that's not what you want to do with talent that you're building.
One of WWE's most intriguing love triangle storylines played out in 2000 between Triple H, Kurt Angle, and Stephanie McMahon. What began as innocent interactions between Angle and Stephanie soon escalated into a full-blown feud with Triple H, leading to a storyline packed with jealousy, betrayal, and mind games. The tension built over months. Angle and Stephanie shared increasingly flirtatious moments, much to the frustration of Triple H. A fully loaded Stephanie received flowers from a secret admirer, which Triple H assumed were from Angle, though they were actually from Chris Jericho as a prank. Meanwhile, Triple H's own suspiciously close relationship with Trish Stratus only added fuel to the fire. The seeds of distrust had been planted.
Wow.
By the August 4th episode of SmackDown, Stephanie seemed to have more in common with Angle than her own husband. The drama escalated when Stephanie begged Angle not to compete against Triple H for the #1 contender spot. Angle, misinterpreting her words, assumed she was unhappy with how Triple H was treating her.
Hunter, you're a bitter and jealous man, and it pains me to see Stephanie, my friend, saddled with a loser like you. That Triple H, you always made a lousy WWF champion. But after last night, you make even a lousier husband.
As tensions boiled over, Mick Foley resolved the conflict by making it a triple threat match between The Rock, Triple H, and Angle at SummerSlam 2000. The match would feature one of the most infamous botches in WWE history.
Yep.
Angle suffered a legitimate concussion after a failed pedigree from the announce table, forcing him out of the match for a portion of time. The storyline was supposed to lead to Stephanie betraying Triple H and aligning with Angle.
If you haven't seen this story, like what happened during this match, so when he got hit with that pedigree through the announcer's table, his head basically bounced because the table broke earlier than was planned to break, and so they carted him out because he had a severe concussion. But with how WWE was during this time, they didn't know as much about concussions and the protocol, like what to do to treat concussions. They kind of just treated it like a regular injury. So they brought him back out later in that match, and he had no idea where he was. They said, Kurt Angle's talked about this in interviews, saying that he doesn't remember anything like in that afternoon of that show. Like, he only remembers like basically when he got to the arena earlier in the day. And when he went out, he had no idea what he was doing. And Stephanie McMahon and Triple H had to call spots like during it and tell him, go over here, pin this, break up this fall, do this move, whatever. That's crazy. This is the main event of SummerSlam. I mean, I get it. You don't want to, it is the main event of SummerSlam, so you don't want to completely change everything like that. But wow, man, that would not happen nowadays.
There's a little electricity between Stephanie.
Kurt and I are just friends.
Where is it written that a guy and a girl can't be just friends?
However, in a backstage meeting, Triple H reportedly vetoed the idea, stating that it wasn't believable that Stephanie would ever leave him for Angle. Instead of a dramatic payoff, the storyline was abruptly altered, and Stephanie remained with Triple H, reducing what could have been a major shift in WWE's power dynamics to a forgettable conclusion.
That is crazy.
Kurt Angle later confirmed that the original plan had indeed been for him to steal Stephanie away, and he expressed disappointment that it never happened.
But it did just kind of, fall apart. Then there was no ending to it. I think what happened is after that certain kiss, I think, there might have been a couple people uncomfortable about it and decide not to continue on the storyline.
I mean, we know Triple H is this egotistical dude, but this dude, I mean, even in storylines, seeing another dude kiss your wife, I could totally understand why he didn't want this storyline to continue. So I don't blame him. I don't know. Do y'all disagree with that? You think he was letting his ego show a little too much?
WWE fans were left wondering what could have been. The feud fizzled out, and Angle moved on to other rivalries, while Triple H remained by Stephanie's side. The summer of 2011 was one of the most exciting times in modern WWE history. CM Punk had just dropped his infamous pipe bomb promo, criticizing WWE's corporate structure and setting himself up as the anti-authority rebel. This led to Punk winning the WWE Championship from John Cena at Money in the Bank, only to leave WWE with the title. However, a rematch was set for SummerSlam to unify the disputed championships between Punk
14 years later, we have it now.
But the real shock came immediately after. Kevin Nash made his shocking return to WWE, attacking Punk and leaving him laid out with a jackknife powerbomb. Moments later, Alberto Del Rio cashed in the Money in the Bank contract, winning the WWE Championship. It was a perfect setup for a Punk vs Nash feud, but what started as an intriguing angle quickly fell apart behind the scenes. Punk and Nash cut promos against each other in the following weeks, with Punk famously mocking Nash by saying his sister texted him, thinking Nash was dead. Nash later admitted on his podcast that he was not given a response line during this exchange, making the segment feel awkward. The feud was set to culminate in a match between Punk and Nash at Night of Champions. However, Nash was abruptly pulled from the bout, and Triple H inserted himself into the match instead. Why? Well, according to Nash, it was personal. He revealed on his podcast that Triple H had developed a strong dislike for Punk during this time, saying Punk got under Triple H's skin so bad, Paul just came up to me and said, "You're not going to wrestle him, I'm beating him." To make matters more confusing, WWE cited Nash's medical issues as the reason for cancelling the match, yet he was still cleared to interfere physically in multiple segments and later had a TLC match against Triple H. Nash himself pointed out the inconsistency, suggesting that Triple H simply wanted to take Punk's spotlight. Backing up Nash's claims, former WCW wrestler Disco Inferno confirmed that Nash told him the story privately before making it public. It's 100% true. Nash was supposed to work with Punk, and Triple H just said, "Nope, I'm beating him."
Paul just came up to me and just said, I'm gonna beat him. You're not gonna wrestle him, I'm beating. I was like, cool.
Instead of Punk getting his revenge on Nash, the storyline was derailed. Punk lost to Triple H at Night of Champions, and Nash instead began feuding with Triple H, leading to a TLC match that nobody had originally asked for. What should have been a major storyline between a rebellious CM Punk and the returning Kevin Nash turned into another example of WWE's backstage politics, overshadowing creative storytelling. Punk never got his closure with Nash, and instead Triple H walked away victorious. Another case of an intriguing angle that was completely abandoned. Which of these unfinished storylines do you wish had played out? Let me know in the comments. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to
Wow, man, yeah. So that was 10 WWE storylines canceled because of real life drama. Another banger by Wrestling Flashbacks. I will put the link to this original video in the description, so if you want, go and show some love, drop a like for that. As you can see for these, the common pattern seems to be Triple H. So obviously there's a bunch of other ones, you can't just sum these all up with 10 of them, but man, backstage, we talk about, if somebody's like super like abusing their backstage power, not like Becky Hogan or Sammy Hogan. Man, seems like Triple H was the one they passed the torch down to with all of these storylines that he just completely nixed because his backstage pull, he completely derailed it with all the backstage chicanery. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to the greatest city in the world, Wrestling City. And that's about it. I will see y'all next time. Peace.